It's not a coincidence that the sophistication of humanity is something that has been expressed through our death and dying rituals. There's this importance of death in all of our mythologies. Have you noticed? There's always going to be an ending of things. And as my particular nodes are in two kinds of endings in the body graph, one is 42, which is, yeah, growth, which is about ending a cycle of experience. And then on the unconscious side, where I'm at right now is about people fearing dying without achieving their purpose, not knowing what life's purpose is. And death has always had something very profound for me. I remember learning how to be a hospice worker in my teen years, my later teen years. I wanted to volunteer. And, you got to have some kind of interesting connection with death if at that young age that thing interests you, being able to support people through their death. So if you've ever been curious about death, or, I even recently, there's a human design manifester on LinkedIn that connected with me, and she's a death doula, someone who prepares and facilitates people moving through the death process. And so if that is something interesting to you, you're in the right place. Or if you've maybe had a lot of deaths in the family recently, or you may even be fearing your own death, one thing I do want to let you know is that death is just a doorway to transition back into pure frequency. So it's nothing to fear. Death is a part of us. Quote, Ra says, death is life. It's a part of us always, moment by moment. The cells on the surface of the skin, on the tongue, all these cells inside of us that are dying, we are a dying machine. We're always dying, and we're always renewing. And then at some point, the body says, stop. And it says no. And now it might be curious to know that every month is actually a preparation for death because we magically resurrect. And there's this cellular timetable that we all have. Did you know you came with an expiration date? Yeah. Not only are my nodes in portals of endings, but also my life's purpose, life's work fulfillment. Gate 30 is about, feelings and the recognition and acceptance of fate, the resignation to accept the fate. And where that incarnation personality cross is grounded is in gate 29, which is where the body, decides to die, or it says no to life. We know the gate 29 to be yes, right? Yes. But it also says no. So when you see the way that this is played out mechanically, our natural death, okay, natural death as in the body, going out at its opportunity. And you'll see that we all go through a natural death every single month, every single one of us, every month. We have a preparation for death. And you'll never look at the moon in gate 29 the same, because that is where there is this deciding point for the body. Are we going to stay or are we going to go? And every new month brings that new resurrection and rebirth. The whole that we are, as you know, is greater than the sum of the parts. And we don't necessarily even notice that there's this balance between we as human species being as much life as we are death. We don't notice that we are as much birth as we are of dying, in that it's always a balance. We're constantly resurrecting and dying. It's a cycle. Like everything in life, it's a cycle. So if you've ever lost anybody in your life, they leave things behind as far as imprints on your memory. They touch you deeply, don't they? When it comes to the loss of the other in one's life, it can feel very profound. Ra liked this theme of an orchestra, the Global Orchestration Directories, if you've heard of it, the GODS Global Orchestration Directories, GODS, if you will. He liked the magic of being an instrument of the cosmos in the movement of a concerto. But as that instrument in that movement, there is something demanded of him, he says, not just the quality of the music as he played. We can take that for granted. Each one of us is, I'm saying this now, we are all music. But he says, quote, I've spent my life as a musician, and when you make music with others, if you don't come in at the right time, it's a shattering experience. Everything just stops. And if you don't come in properly, everything just stops and you're lost. The magic of a drummer beating you into unison. So, if you've ever watched musicians play, you know what he's trying to say. You see that screeching halt or whatever the case may be until they start up again. So he says that when you don't leave this plane correctly, you create a disruptive frequency. So how we enter into our own solo in the ocean of music, as far as leaving in the perfection of what leaving death can be, it can be correct, it can be perfect. And if it's not, if you don't know how to go, you create a disruptive frequency. And so, like anything, there is this movement, this alignment. Now that you've had some time to decondition, have you noticed or felt how much more sensitive your body, your attunement to being an instrument of the cosmos can be? Have you noticed when you talk in such a way that it's incorrect for you to say that you stop? These are the experiences I've been having. And there's a gentleness or a self-kindness, a compassion that I feel that I wonder if you do too. Because remember how we don't have a choice? Yeah. The entering in and the leaving is just as important as the staying. You know, so much of us get caught up in life and we start life. We don't remember. Do you remember being born? My husband has traumatic experiences from being born. He was born dead, literally blue. They had to resurrect him, choking on his own feces, entering into life, and the taste of life is shit. You know, we all have our own process, whether we are born into a loving family or not. And as we grow and age and have our own children's, maybe not, and then die, we can forget along the way that we are here in a limited stay. Quote, Ross says, there's been an enormous dysfunction in the way in which humanity leaves the body. It is the equivalent to the dysfunction of humanity staying in the body as far as, you know, our not self, the dysfunction we call not self. This dysfunction we call not self, that is the madness of the normal mind. And another way he would say that. So, quote, for most of the world, it's normal to die and be buried within 24 hours, just normal. But when you understand the nature of mechanics, that so-called normality has created all kinds of very bizarre diversity. It's populated our planets with crystals of consciousness that are in a mutative form that serve no specific purpose whatsoever, unquote. And when I was teaching the, you know, profiles, purpose, and function, it did come across, again, as always, you know, you listen to a lot of raw and you're like shocked, and then you maybe forget about it, and because it's not really important here and now, until it come across it again and you're like, wow, no specific purpose whatsoever. Well, apparently, who knows? But imagine dying. As far as the personality crystal that we live in, it's a shell, okay? A shell, basically, our personality eternal. And to really grasp that we incarnate are limited in the way in which we perceive frequency. So I'm feeling cognition. I feel things. I may not see them, but I feel things. My husband's outer vision. He sees things. Yes, he feels things too. He's emotional, and he's a 5. Lots of 5s. You're sensitive to frequencies, sounds. But each one of you has a very specific, in this life, body sensation that is your incarnative vehicle. I'm talking about your tonal cognition on the body side. So once we die, that is gone. Yeah, the body is gone. It is going to recycle at the center of the earth. So the way that we perceive frequency, if we as a personality crystal had eyes that we could look up into the sky, we could see that we were inside of a crystal ball. Okay, we are inside of a crystal ball. We are in a shroud of crystal consciousness, because that's what's outside of this earth. If you could see them, you would not be able to see the earth if we were out there on the moon looking down at the earth. The personality crystal consciousness is built on bundles. There are so many of them now. And so many of them because of the dysfunction that we call not self, not just the godheads, if you will, the 16 archetypal bundles out there, but the rogue crystal bundles that are wandering the earth for however many eons, where because humanity did not know how to leave the plane correctly and return from whence we came, what happens is that they band together, they bond with like frequency, and then they're just roaming. So all of us who are incarnate now, we are so lucky. We have no idea how lucky we are. I know it's painful. I know it's sad. I know sometimes it can be very hard to be embodied. I know. I so know where you're coming from when you say it's hard. But it's just the way that it works that some people don't incarnate. Okay, so not everybody gets to incarnate. As far as on this planet, here and now, with us, there's way more people, personality crystals out there than there are you and I here embodied. Okay. So your personality crystal that you've been embodied with, endowed with in existence since the beginning of this cosmos. So somebody help me out here. I have such a hard time. Okay. Here's 1,000. That would be 1,000,000. Is that 15 billion? Just please correct me if I'm wrong. 15, that would be 100 million. Yeah, 15 billion. Please correct me. Thank you, Alex. Okay. So when it comes to numbers, my mind always balks. When it comes to math, it's just like, nope, not doing that. So it's nice to have your boundaries stretched a bit, you know. When you think about this personality crystal, this is the closest thing that we can come to with realizing or pondering the infinite. My husband asked his father, what is infinity? You know, how do we describe it? I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something like, imagine a number, then double it. Okay, imagine that number, then double it. And imagine that number, then double it. And then imagine that number and double it. And he just kept going on and on and on until, of course, as a child, how long are you going to be able? I can't even do that twice. Or, well, maybe I could. I'm disparaging myself, but nonetheless, we who are walking around here on this plane, we are something that is part of billions and billions and billions and billions of years old. Trust your awareness. Trust yourself. Trust your incarnation. Because truly, this differentiation of the unique infrastructure of the crystal, everybody forgets that it's not just the imprint where the planets are when you were born or your body was imprinted within mama, your mother, yeah, before you were born. But think about this shape right here. Every single one of us has a unique internal architecture. Our shape of the crystal is different. And that means that every single one of us is utterly, utterly, utterly unique beyond the imprinting that you see on those screens now, not pieces of paper anymore. Unique infrastructure for your embodiment, the eternal passenger witness consciousness. And that's the thing that we can potentially poke our head through the sky, disbelief of the ego I, and surrender to the cosmos of which we are inherently, intrinsically a part of. It's weird to be teaching when I get into these spaces because I'm closing my eyes and then I have to open up and see where am I as far as what am I doing here on the slides. Ra says, with that infrastructure of a crystal being over 15 billion years old through its movement through time and space, how over and over again the crystal gets to incarnate as a passenger, eternal passenger, vehicle after vehicle, life after life. We are the eternal passenger. Now, oftentimes when you come to human design, people like to disparage this or that and say, oh, that's so not self. I've heard people say that the mind is the not self. And there's so much of this chaos of the linearity, thinking it has to be this or that. Why not this and that? That's the quantum. As in, when I first came, as an example, came to human design, I can remember, oh, okay, that's my mind and I'm supposed to follow the body. Okay. No wonder some teachers out there would teach only follow the body. Your mental imprint, not your authority, which would make me a self-projected projector, not emotional. And I so know that that's not true. So trust this witness as it is embodied in this form. The body recycles. The body gets one life. The passenger consciousness, the witness consciousness, the eternal passenger, the only thing that lasts is that you enter into the same base all the time. The same base. Okay? The same base. So it gets the 15 billion times over here. And if you are always incarnate on the same base, that means the base behind is one step behind. Your body is one step behind relative to its base relational dynamic. That's the only thing that's eternal. Everything else shifts, morphs, changes. Because, yeah, just like cars, you don't keep the same car. At some point, the car is done and you get a new one. That's what happens when we incarnate. Okay? So Ross says that every time you go through an incarnative process, your body is married to this personality that is the eternal you. And it's the different vehicle, the upgraded model and evolutionary movement that is the form principle. The form conditions all of this. So remember, I so wish somebody had told this to me very clearly at the very beginning. Your body, I'm going to put a heart over here to represent the body, which is the life, which is the love of the form, your crystal of consciousness that is the form principle. Here's the G, here's the Ashna, and passenger is over here, okay? So the thing that creates the love, the eternal love, being love, what is love, is that Ajna, design crystal, and the magnetic monopole. That's the eternal love that you are seeking for, searching for. If you've ever felt lonely, scared, not able to find yourself, there is this underlying tension of being alive and being separate, this illusion of being separate from the totality of existence. It's created because of this separation inside. So your form, okay, your body, which is the life, conditions the passenger. As in, look down at your body graph, please. Look down at anything that's red. Anything that's red is conditioning the passenger. And what happens when we are conditioned and we're not aligned to being an and? It's not either or, it's a we. in this life. An I, yeah, in context. The eternal nature of the passenger witness consciousness married to a body in this life. And then in the context of the life, the nodes of the moon. Okay? This is the movie. So your form principle conditions how many vehicles at any given time are going to be available for passengers. Isn't that interesting? The form principle. What is the form principle? Where does the form come from? Remember Mama Earth? Mama at the middle, the center of the earth that we are all bound to, even when we are disincarnate. We float, hovering, yeah, surrounding her. So again, personality crystals that do not leave the plane correctly become part of the quote unquote encounter environment. Profile, purpose, and function teaches you more about the encounter. Angels, demons, ghosts, entities, gods, aliens. So if you do not incarnate and then decarnate correctly, chances are, now interesting enough, listen closely, he's negating what he said before. He says, chances are they will not go back. Okay? So it's not a guarantee, as in go back to your original crystal bundle. I happen to come from Kali. Yeah? So whatever your original crystal bundle, where your personality crystal came from, you leave this plane incorrectly, chances are you will not go back. In other places, he says, you won't. However, here he says, if they do not go back, then they cannot incarnate again. So if you don't get back to your original source crystal bundle, then you do not incarnate again. And that's where he says, in fact, they become a part of the encounter environment, minor consciousness fields that we can bump into, you know, the things that go bump in the night and all those things. So if we were to zoom out, when in doubt, zoom out, wait, big picture view, let's look at these two different kinds of phenomena. Remember, we have the, yin and yang of things. There's always going to be the yin and yang of things. Now, the personality crystal could be said to be more yang, but yang is an illusion that operates out of the yin, quote unquote, raw. So we have these personality crystals that are in bundles, and some of them, millions and millions of personality crystals that are not Godhead bound. Okay, let's just imagine we put Godheads out here a little bit further. The personality crystals wandering the earth, they're much tighter. We have them out here so you can just see the difference and have some labels, okay? When it comes to the awareness of you, this body, this being, trusting your form, the form is so intelligent when you're looking at the design construct. The form is connected to Mama Earth still. Still we are. You go outside, you breathe the fresh air, your feet are on the grass or on the sand or on the dirt, and you are connected to Mama Earth. The design crystal construct is one thing in the middle of the core of the center of the earth. And that means the entire form principle is literally just one single crystal consciousness field. And that is the consciousness of the earth. We who are children of the earth, these forms, these bodies. And so it is the form principle, consciousness, that brings the possibility of the totality of what life is in form on this plane. I'm not just talking about humans, I'm talking about all vehicles, all of life, sovereign, and not necessarily free. Our form principle, the form design, is designed to dominate. When you, and dominate not in a bad sense of the word as in subjugate, but that it becomes more prominent, more alive, more vital, more joyous, or not. more powerful, as in more present, more weighted, as in heavily weighted, as in important. Okay. Now, earlier I said the yang is an illusion. Okay. Yang personality crystal. Yang is an illusion that operates out of the yin. Okay. So that means then these personality crystals are actually of a similar quality nature as the form principle. It's just that these vehicles, they get recharged, rejuvenated, recycled, and then reincarnated. Now, the reincarnation process for the personality, the eternal witness, when we are attuned to the form, what happens is all kinds of possibilities are there for the emergence of the transcendence of the crystal consciousness, unity consciousness, the magnificence of being in touch with the cosmology principle, the cosmic everythingness. And I wonder how many of you actually have a meditation practice. Anyone? I remember because over the years I've gotten to know Ra's wife pretty well. We enjoy chatting together, just talking. And I remember being so delighted and happy when she brought up that feeling of what it's like to be immersed or bathed in that breath of being, this presence of being that is beyond just, the mind with its illusion, delusion, false narrative of what Maya is currently feeding the awareness principle. If you don't have some kind of, now, I'm not saying that you have to do this, but if you don't have some kind of practice of getting in touch with your design, whether that be walking meditation, active meditation, or silent meditation and going within inside. Everybody has their own way to get in touch with the body, whether it just be a breath. However it is, it's right for you to get in touch with your form principle too. I really strongly encourage that you do so in these vastly shifting, changing times. Yesterday, I was staying after one of the classes, and Oni, you guys know, she asked me, what would you say to people when it comes to how do we change our language in 2027? What would you say? What do we need to tell them? And this is the thing that I recognize that is so prominent and so true, is that you only have you, your body. You have to go into your form and trust it. That's just another way of saying be your own authority. In the stressful, changing times, we cannot control what happens on the outside. We can do our best to face with grace whatever's happening. And we can do that by remembering, I'm here now, I can breathe, I can be. I'm still here, still alive, still kicking, still part of the process of being. So naturally, there's the magnetic monopole symbol Ra was given that he would constantly draw. And naturally, this design crystal and the monopole are one thing. They fit together perfectly. They're like hand and glove. They are a perfect togetherness in their deep bond for this life. When our personality is going to have this body, it doesn't have the unity of the design and the monopole together. It never experiences that. It's what Ra calls the sacrifice of love, the eternal, undying, unconditional love of self. This is the higher self, where the magnetic monopole sits. So the moment that these incarnative mechanics are at play, he says, quote, the design and its monopole are ready to allow the form to emerge. That is also the moment of deepest surrender, because the moment the magnetic monopole and the design crystal finally reaches and fertilizes the egg and its cellular design crystals, then life process begins. Did you know every single one of your cells has its own design crystal? Now, those of you who are taking 5-HTP, anybody else take 5-HTP? Me too, back in the day, in order to affect the serotonin. It was a very big thing when I was a young adult. Unfortunately, because serotonin is a neurotransmitter, messing with your serotonin levels, the drugs that we take, trying to improve or detach from the life, that actually fucks with the time that you're going to leave this earth. It shortens your lifespan. So be very, very careful with anything that messes with your serotonin, please. It's the timer, the neural transmitter, and it's the timer for your death. Science calls it serotonin. So according to the voice, there is a predictability in how much serotonin will be produced throughout a lifetime. So each and every one of us, according to Ra, being born with a guarantee of a certain amount of serotonin production. And when that production ends, so do we. As it evolves into a neurotransmitter, something that is a direct byproduct of the separation of the design crystal and the magnetic monopole. So that separation causing the amount of serotonin that one is given for this life. The mechanism where life is doled out in these microscopic eyedroppers of serotonin. And so Ra would call the health industry, pseudo-health industry, is really insane sometimes, that there's these serotonin additives, things to cut down on serotonins, things to increase serotonins, and that's what he calls very dangerous, because it's truly taking time off your life if you mess with that. And something to grasp, he says, about the design crystal that you have in your vehicle. It's top dog, it's number one. It runs the show because it's the body. The personality crystal doesn't have that kind of connection to the magnetic monopole. No, the monopole holding us together in the illusion of our separation from the totality of existence. And here we have the personality riding around on top the vehicle, not fully incarnate, just a passenger, just a witness, embodied currently in this vehicle, witness to this vehicle. So Ross says the personality crystal is whistled away, whistled at, there we go, whistled at, the way that a bellhop whistles, the monopole is going to whistle at the personality crystal. It's going to call it into the vehicle. Hey, we're ready for you. I would whistle if I could. I can't. It's terrible. I've never been able to do that. So the design doesn't have enough respect for the personality to even let it sit inside the illusion, as in inside the aura. It sits above the head. It sits above the head. It's not fully incarnate. That's why Ra would wear hats. He said it would keep his personality crystal warm. All right. So this monopole being extraordinary in that it's the thing that's holding the design crystal and the monopole, or the monopole is holding the design crystal and the personality together. So keeping it connected, you could say juxtaposed, two similar but different things, juxtaposed in order to have this realization of the quantum, where the two become one. So it's the monopole that drives us along, pulls us, me to me, you to you, pulls us along our path in space through our trajectory in life. The monopole is held together by link nodes holding together this personality crystal and this design crystal. Actually, it's the opposite. Hang on. I'll do it this way. Okay. There. That's how it's holding us together. I'll just do this so that you know. Nodes of the moon. Okay. The link nodes. Your unconscious north node and your personality, south node. Remember how I said Lavina has 28 and 42? Yeah, these are my link nodes, endings and fear of death or dying without achieving one's purpose. That's why this particular course is so important to me personally. Ross says, the personality doesn't even get to flirt with the monopole. It's simply not their relationship. It's not easy for the personality. It's like 3 people at the table at a time, and 2 of them are in love. Guess which 2? Okay, these 2. The eternal nature of unconditional love. They separate in order to build the body. Have you ever seen those romantic movies where, if you love someone, set them free, kind of a thing? You love them so much, you want the best for them, set them free. And for the life experience, the monopole and the design crystal are held separately in order for the personality to have this movie, this dance through space and time, in physicality, in the apparent reality. So monopole being so extraordinary, making it all possible, it's such an interesting thing. As in being uncomfortable, being embodied. Remember where the monopole sits is in the diamond at the center of being. Oh gosh, my coloring today is just terrible. Do we have some kind of shape creator? Ooh, look at that. I'll put a star here. That's not big enough. Oh well, I was gonna try and draw a G. Let's see if I can do it a little bit better. We'll start down here. Okay, so the diamond at the center of being, relatively speaking, that right there, not being able to align correctly to your body means that this monopole cannot, literally cannot hold you into your personality movie the way it was intended to be. It can't. So you don't get that nodal frequency, as in not just the movie that you're here to see, but you also don't get the potential of making decisions correctly. It's like this catch-22. Can't make a decision correctly, so can't get your own movie. So you can't make a decision correctly, so you can't get your own movie. Unfortunately, that's why it's so important that you start with the body first. If you are having a hard time following your strategy and honoring yourself as an authority, particularly if you're a right brain body system, I highly recommend that you get in touch with your determination, your variable, first and foremost. Experiment if it's right for you, when it's right for you. Try it and see. It changes your frequency, literally. And it takes time. Give it 7 years for you to align. And it's hit me, the incredible vastness of the conditioning relative to what happened to you the moment you were born and were growing in this cosmic soup of conditioning, that there's a lot of things to heal, aren't there? Do you remember the pain and suffering of childhood growing up? You have all your stories, don't you? You have your wounds. Guess when it's time to heal? Guess when it's time to get it together? Uranus opposition. Okay, before Chiron. And so what happens at Uranus opposition? Lavina is dealing with that right now. Incredible deconditioning and healing. The body's healing system, symptoms of healing, swelling, inflammation, pain. Did you know that that's healing? That's healing, healing those wounds, burning through karma as the Kundalini energy rises from your Uranus opposition. And where is Lavina getting the blockages? Right here, at the throat. Most women do, because men usually have something in the life that forces them to face those blockages sooner rather than later. So the design crystal having an extraordinary relationship to the monopole, there is this vast, wide gulf between them. The timing mechanism for when it's time for them to reunite and to leave the body, that magic in the life ending, and that they return to being love. Just being love. Remember transcendent love, the higher self, the realms of the higher self. So the moment of biological death is when that design crystal drops into reunite with the magnetic monopole down through the central channel, this whole central process that is part of individual circuitry. So by dropping down through the ajna, reconnecting and reforming with the monopole, it's their perfect bond when they're together in life, that perfect bond, when they come back together to this physical life, your biological life as a physical form is over. That's the moment that it's done, when you're dead and gone. And now exiting the body. See that? Exiting the body. So I want you to think about something quite interesting to see. The current place where Pluto is in the gate where we leave and its end games. We as in the physical body with its magnetic monopole, not we as in witness passenger consciousness. So think about that repeating pattern. Remember how you look at an analysis of anything, you're looking for repeating patterns. Pluto, death, transformation, 60, limitation, and the final doorway before we exit the body. No wonder everybody's having so much challenge nowadays. You feel that? Lavina has Chiron multiple times in gate 3. Not that it's big enough to open up that portal to the sacral, but boy, I tell you, I know it is painful times, endings. And yet, in order to transcend limitation, remember the first step is acceptance. We are in this vehicle finite. The personality crystal, we live on and on and on, right? Relatively speaking, not incarnate, decarnate. So let's call it the body's emergency exit down here, okay? The emergency exit. That's that final doorway where it's end times, it's game over for that design crystal with its magnetic monopole, no longer holding us together in the illusion and separation. No. So when the design crystal and the monopole go back down into the earth, they reconnect with the rest of the design crystal bundles, the one bundle of Mama Earth. And there it is, as they move down and re-entering into the center, the molten iron core of the earth. This is a body now that doesn't have a monopole because there's nothing left that guides this form. There's nothing left. You know how they say the light leaves their eyes? Well, the passenger's still there. What light left the eyes when they die? These two, gone. And the body starts to break down. Now, there's still electrical connectivity within the brain. The brain still has neuronic firing. This personality is still using this body. Thank you very much. Please give me 72 hours, then you can have me. You know, it would say if it could, but it can't. So because the body doesn't have a monopole, it's not connected in any way to movement anymore. Remember, this is, monopole is pulling us. It's trajectory. It's magnetic and it pulls in one direction. So no more of guidance. The higher self being the guide. The personality has the final frontier of this incarnation, my dear. The personality crystal, no longer connected to the form principle, has its out-of-body experience, okay? Death is really just an out-of-body experience. Think of it that way, death being an out-of-body experience. I imagine those people who are really into out-of-body experiences have a very special design If anybody's really interested in out-of-body experiences and you know some people and you have their designs and they, wander around out there in the cosmos regularly, I would love to see. I don't have time to research these things, but I would really love to see if you can hear me and you want to see too. Send me some charts, okay? Now, 72 hours, this personality crystal taps into the remaining of the neural activity inside of its brain for this experience of it having its Bardo. Bardo, if that's a new word for you, it's a decarnating process, basically. Okay? Decarnating Bardo consciousness, a different kind of consciousness. It's a dream, the ultimate dream of the personality, to be free of the form and still be conscious. Because once Bardo is done, the dream of the life fades away very quickly. The body should not be stored in the ground, and no intrusive medical work on the body, as in it can be cumbersome relative to, gosh, now we've got to put you on ice. My husband and I, because we live in Arizona, very hot here, we joke about building air-conditioned coffins just in case, because, power goes out and what do? Don't want this, corpse there rotting, decaying, smelling in the hot sun. It's really hot here, guys. Okay, so according to Ra, it's not healthy for the body to be stored in the ground. And I wonder, and I imagine, I project that that includes, basement storage where they keep the bodies on ice. I do not know for sure. How can we know for certain? So sometimes there's going to be demands for autopsies. And an autopsy, as in, why did this person die, isn't nearly as effective as an immediate autopsy because the body starts to decay immediately. Remember when it decays? When does it decay? Where does it decay? It decays right there, right? Just a flash there, gone. Okay, gone. Body's decaying right there. As in, no more magnetic monopole or design crystal. That body is simply breaking down. So people try to do the autopsy immediately, unfortunately. And these are religious things too that need to be made. Burn me, says some people. Bury me, say others. And what if you live in a hot area of the world? Many people do. So they burn or they bury their dead before their Bardo is complete. And they have no idea. And they have rules and laws against not burying the dead immediately. Lucky people who die out in nature and people get found, 3 days later, they get their Bardo. Yay for them. Us in our civilized world, no, we don't, mostly. So there is a certain point that they don't permit the extension of dealing with the body. 24 hours is usually the limit. If you die in some cultures, they say you have to be buried before the sun sets. Lots of rules. What's the word when people are superstitions? Yeah, superstitions even. Got to bury them before sunset, otherwise they're going to come back and haunt you, So this intelligence of this personality, you and me, who seem to be in charge, I'm speaking to you, my personality believes it's me. It's me. However, that body intelligence is limited by the hardware that you were endowed with, that physicality. Yes, the design and the monopole. So it's not limited by how good of a teacher you had or a parent you had or how much you get to learn in this life. It's the level of neural activity in your brain. So the potential for the capacity of increased neural activity in the brain, the nutrients that are necessary, It's the hardware. Yeah, the body is the hardware to this personality crystal software. So pay attention. If you don't die correctly, as in you have not been living your life correctly, your neural pathways of the body were not prepared for the intelligence of this personality getting its full Bardo. Oh well. Maybe next life. Oh well. Okay? No worries. Can't control this. Please don't feel bad about anybody who's gone. You know, they had their path, you have yours. However, now that you are here and you are awake and alive and aware and you have yours, can you pay attention to your body, your vehicle, your form principle, and allow it to be nourished by what it needs? Okay? The potential for your personality to fulfill its potential depends on your hardware operating correctly. And that means deconditioning. It means feeding, nourishing the body, treating it correctly, you see. The personality crystal has no access to hardware anymore when it's completely disincarnate, gone. But in this form, see, embodiment, that's why that head center is up outside the body, you see. It's hanging around here, held together by the monopole, holding us together in this. Again, it is an illusion that we are separate from totality. Man is not separate from nature, from Mama Earth. We are children of the mother, the great mother, the great nourisher. This is where the strength to nurture, the power to care. I have been aware of being here and this planet in this body, vehicle, form principle that is reincarnate in flesh because of the recycling principle. So, why is it that our personalities fear so much the death process? Well, I'll tell you, conditioning, movies. If we saw movies that didn't display death as gruesome, but as a celebration, we would not have the same kind of experience of death. This vehicle body principle could not handle horror movies at all, but you know, family forced it to, force, quote unquote. And I scream at those movies and never live it down, as in seeing the decapitation or the stabbing or the whatever it happens to be. So it is the conditioning of our circumstances that leads us to think that death is the end. It's not. Personalities suffer because they believe that there's nothing after. Talk to anybody who's had an after-death experience. You ever see those movies where documentaries where they talk about their out-of-body experience? They had a death experience, but they came back and they don't fear it anymore. They don't. Okay? They don't. There's nothing to be afraid of, my dear. The only chance for us as human beings to be truly aware, though, is with the intelligence of our form, our hardware, that this left for us after we are out of that incarnation game and we're in our Bardo phase, the 72 hours. That is the only chance for most human beings to be truly aware. Bardo. Because most of the time they're walking around asleep. They don't know that this is an eternal show, that the game goes on, that there's something more. They're so lost in the miasma of the normal waking mind, they are not aligned, so they don't know. They don't know. Like perhaps you or I know that there's so much more to this existence, that we are not finite relative to time and space. We are infinite. We, I speak to you, the passenger, too. A little bit of me in you and a little bit of you in me. We are one thing, just having a unique, differentiated experience in our incarnative capability. So when you have your complete Bardo, according to the voice, the personality crystal can return to its source. So I get to go back up to the archetype of Kali, the great destroyer of false devotion. Kali can be demon-like, and she can be the great mother. Fate. What will it bring? When you go through your process too, and you complete your Bardo, you can return to your source. That's why it's so important to lay into effect plans with your closest beings. And you know what? If you die in a car accident and you don't get your Bardo, well, there's fate for you, you know? I found so much comfort that Katja found something that had a discrepancy with how, you know, how extreme Ra can be, as in very determined to, hammer in the truth. And she found may most likely, will not, but could. There is a possibility, my friends, there is a possibility you can get to your original crystal bundle. That's what he called them, the original crystal bundles. And remember, it's not about praying to those gods. It's just about seeing them as an energy, a frequency. We are all frequencies vibrating, moving. The voice carries the frequency, the eternal information of you. And so, on a day-by-day basis, it's truly rare that personality crystals, look, what are we like at? 8 billion people on this planet, is that correct? 8 billion over. So, of those who are decarnating, it's rarer that personality crystals are going to their source, and there's so many more humans here on this planet now, comparatively. So, those gods are weakening in the sky. We have a world here on this planet that is crowded with angels and demons and ghosts, every kind of denomination of God, and what else is there? God, entities, and aliens. We live in an era of alien interest, don't you agree? Have you seen disclosure, aliens, all those things? Yeah, currently. Why? Background frequency shift. Yeah, this new era, the rise of aliens, the sixth line era is already here. It's already here. Everybody's like, oh, 2027, what's going to happen? Hey, it's happening. You guys feel it? I do. Oh, I feel it too. So, because we on this earth are saturated with all kinds of, not only the crystals, the rogue crystal bundles, Ra would call it, the rogue crystal bundles that are here, these trapped forces, not only that, but also the media about that, okay? Which, as we know, conditioning amplifies and distorts. It's not like, I found so much relief too, because when I heard these things, I'm like, oh, I don't want to walk into a crystal bundle. I don't want to be attractive to a crystal bundle. Rogue crystal bundles are attracted to the not self, just so you know. They attach to your aura. So the more that you can live in alignment, the less of these things you'll have, hanging on to you. But they're really not as plentiful as one would think. It's more about the media, because the world is ruled through fear. We're still ending the first line era. Yeah. Fear dominates. Fear feeds the not self. Please don't be afraid about this. You have your own authority. You have your own sovereignty. You can do this. You don't have to be afraid of the dark. We are all equally dark and light. What happens though with these rogue crystal bundles is that there's no contribution, according to Ra, back to the consciousness field. So let's think about this. If we are, and these are all disincarnate rogue crystals, when you see just one of these, okay, they're actually a conglomerate, 10,000 to maybe a million or so of these that are wandering around the earth, attracted to those who are going to interpret them. Now, we who are incarnate, alive, vital still in these bodies. In connecting with the decarnate, we are the ones who project onto them whether they're an angel, whether they're a demon, whether they're a ghost, God, alien, entity, what have you. So it's not that these are bad, not at all. They're not. They're not. It's just that a human being is more susceptible to receiving this frequency from them when you're not self. And when you're not self, what are you going to interpret? A skewed frequency, unfortunately. So it's a signpost. I was listening to Darshana Deborah Matthews, the human design teacher I sought out and did a lot of my homework, my courses with outside of Raw, and other teachers I had to go to because she didn't teach that course. And she told me this story back in the day, but I heard it again yesterday, that she thought she was a walk-in, as in an alien. And many people with the third color will say the same thing. I don't belong here, you know, I'm an alien. Ra himself would say that we are the aliens, you know? And he was a 3 as well. Anybody ever connect with ghosts? If you're a 3 like me and you've seen or felt ghosts, hi, yeah, that's how we interpret. Okay, correctly, I might add, ghosts. Okay, so when we're leaving this plane, Ra wants you to think about how important it is that Bardo gives us a very specific experience of our personality crystal outside of the flesh, but still aware, outside of the embodiment. So, quote, Bardo is something that's really extraordinary because there are Bardo sequences that each and every one of us are predisposed to follow through, to move through, to leave this plane correctly, unquote. And I tell you, I am so excited that I'm teaching this course with you because there are some very intelligent people in this particular experience. And if you have somebody who recently died and you want to go look at if you have their birth, not birth, but yeah, you have to have their birth, but also their death date and time. If you can get an approximate, you can actually read their life through their death. You can read their Bardo stages. And that's what this course is going to be about. It is possible for all of us to attune to our dying as far as the natural death according to Ra. And he's only talking about a natural death, okay? Not the encounter death, the car or the karma of the trauma as far as when someone is taken from us unexpectedly because of an accident. But the natural mechanism of your body dying, it allows us to recognize, hey, we're going, we're leaving, you know, unless you're being so doped up by morphine because you're in so much pain that you actually cannot, you know, cognate. Depends, I guess, on your death process. My mother said my stepfather is terminal recently. And, you know, in order for us to live correctly, just being able to be present to being, simply. You don't have to be anything different than what you already are. There's nowhere to get to. There's nowhere you have to go. There's nothing you have to be. You can just be here now. I tell you, it is so freeing to feel that and recognize it as truth. Even though the mind lives in this Maya show and it's got all these things to do, you know, more and more piling up because of commitments and what have you. If you take that time to realign regularly every day for whatever amount of time you give it, whether that be a few breaths before you fall asleep, or whether you have an actual practice of waking up and doing whatever it is that gets you back in touch with this being. I again strongly encourage you, find your practice too. of going within, sourcing inside, and feeling that rise of energy, that alignment to truth, that you are who you are, and there's nothing else that you have to do but just simply be you. You can let go of all those things, all these external pressures, these people saying this or that about you or to you or for you or whatever the case may be. Oh, my heart is so touched by this. I'm just looking at the moon and recognizing how precious and valuable that feels to me to be able to be giving you this on a Monday. Moon is Monday. That's why I scheduled these cosmologies on Monday, because Monday is Moon's Day. And in Vedic astrology, this is not, but in Vedic astrology, Ra's wife invited me into it when I first started working for Jovian. Took me a few years to really get there, but when I discovered that the moon was my Atmakaraka, as in the personality's soul urge, you could say, the soul planet, the soul purpose, and that where it is in the wheel, in the head center for me, 61, line 3, it's about inner truth, discovering inner truth with you. I cannot do this work without you, each one of you that have been in my classes, precious and valuable to be able to hear from you and to be able to speak to you, even if I don't have energy to speak back on a regular basis. Now that recognition about how valuable and precious each person is, and yet I may not have time to reach out and touch verbally nor energy. Hey, this voice can only speak so much. So it is correct for me to say to you collectively that I love you. I love you unconditionally. And I just wish and hope every single one of you would feel it too, inside of you, coming from inside of you, rather than looking for it outside of you. Ross says, in order for us to live correctly, quote, just as we know love when we meet love, we know death when it's beside us, when it embraces us. I like this image, this embrace, this dance with death, because it is a dance. It's a dance of the moon, the ice moon. The ice moon is a very special moon that we all get to experience once, just once, in our very precious, finite lifetime for this body. The moon shuts us down. The moon, as it moves round this wheel, this clock that is turning, ticking the time of closing down, one thing after the other, in a step-by-step process. Now, if you're feeling cognition like me, you can feel it. If you're smell, you can smell it. 2, taste it. 3, see it out externally or internally. Yeah. 4, touch it. That's nervous touch is 4. 4 is inner vision. 4 is inner vision. 5 is the feeling, that's me. And then 6 is touch. Okay. The acceptance, touching the acceptance of death. It's such a very special gift to be there for someone. If they're alone in the world and they have no one to help them through. Look, this is a day and age where there are so much separation. It is the quality of the 6th line. Being a death doula might be one of the most tremendous things you can do if it's right for you, if it's something that is part of your calling. A midwife brings children into the world, just as important as a death wife. They say a death doula, in order to bring people through that final doorway. There are stages within the death. Some of us are designed specifically to be able to connect to it deeply, because you will see that the lunar activations through specific gates in a cycle with an initiating point and a closing point are going to affect you. So please look down at your body graph again. Do you have a 10, a 3, a 2, a 29, or a 14? There are so much information packed into a hexagram. Yeah, they relate to our genetic codons. And what is it that the moon does? Yeah, in any of these activations? Can you feel the moon moving through you as it crosses that threshold of the doorway to death and says yes or no? This is the thing. As part of, if there is to be a true transformation in the consciousness field, then those who attain high levels of awareness and consciousness need to return to their source. We need to, because it's the completion of our process. If you're like me and spirit is something that has always been important to you, I encourage you to look into this and plan for your death. No one likes to plan for the death until it's like, oh, it's right in my face. I've been given a terminal, disease label. And they wait for that. When you never know, there's no guarantees. Yeah, life, when it comes to the fulfillment of the life process, the fullest expression of an incarnate being and its life's work, 50 and beyond. How many of you know people who have died before 50? I do, plenty. So plan for it. All you have is now. The time is here and now. Now in this form, now. Planning for your death. It's a beautiful thing. It demands from us that we surrender, as in, it's not a physical surrender, it's a mental letting go. Can we let go? Whatever your tool is that you use. I know human design is a very mindy system. My personal experience as a feeling cognition is I use music, frequency, sound, words, vibrational frequency formulas. This work that I do with you is part of my spiritual work. So to surrender into what it is to be embodied in form, as in allowing the body to have its life and its dying and its death, its last breath. When enough is enough and the ice moon shuts us down or begins the shutting down process, the glory of the timelessness of the liberation of being out of form for this personality when we are in our Bardo, 72 hours, that timelessness space where we can, with grace, experience our witness, our final moving through this life experience before we dissolve back into the original source crystal bundle. So, while the body prepares what it has to do, the only thing it can do, what needs to be done when the body says no, and it shuts down this show. When we, as a personality, return to our rightful place and our source, that correct consciousness into the overall consciousness field, to endow the consciousness field with the true spirit. True spirit.